She never expected the screaming to stop so suddenly. That was the detail everyone later remembered, the abrupt quiet. As if the house itself had held its breath. As if the marble walls refused to echo what had just happened inside them. And on that night, in the $1 million mansion perched above the city's glittering skyline, a young woman lay curled on polished hardwood, her breath thin, her heartbeat frantic, her world collapsing with every second that passed. Her name was Ariel Donovan, 27 years old, soft-spoken, brilliant, and newly pregnant with her first child. And the man who had just struck her, the one who stood above her with a trembling fist and a twisted expression, was her husband, William Aldridge, a tech millionaire adored in magazines and worshipped in boardrooms. No one outside their home knew that his temper could snap like a bone. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us it could happen to any of us. But tonight, everything would come undone. 3 seconds. That's how long the silence lasted after she hit the floor. 3 seconds, where she realized she couldn't breathe right. 3 seconds, where William realized what he had done. 3 seconds where the child inside her, barely forming, barely real, barely here, became the center of all her fear. Then came the pain. A slow, deep, tearing pain, low in her abdomen, that made her forget the ringing in her ears. A pain that made her hands instinctively fly to her stomach. A reflex as ancient as motherhood itself. "Will," she whispered, voice cracking. Something's wrong." He took one shaky step back, then another, as if distance could erase his guilt. People online would later argue about her. Some said she married him for his wealth. Some claimed she must have provoked him because a man like that wouldn't snap for no reason. Others insisted he had always seemed off, too controlled, too perfect, too charming. But no one knew the truth the way her father did. Her father, James Donovan, a former Marine turned small-town contractor, had raised his daughter to believe in kindness but to recognize danger. He had taught her how to listen to the tone behind a man's words, how to trust her instincts, how to walk away before something turned poisonous. Ariel had always listened. Until William. He was everything her small hometown wasn't. Suits tailored to perfection. Watches that cost more than her college tuition. Limousines. Private galas. Power. Confidence so smooth it felt like silk. Their love had felt like a fairy tale. Her father never trusted it. He once told her, "A man who controls the room needs someone to tell him no. Otherwise, he becomes dangerous." But when she replayed that warning, standing in front of a glittering ring the size of her thumbnail, she thought her father was simply overprotective. After all, William had never laid a hand on her before. Until tonight. The argument had started over something small, a rumor in his company that a female employee had accused him of aggressive behavior during a meeting. Ariel didn't know if it was true, but she had gently asked him about it. Just a question. A simple question. But to William, questions were threats. "You always take everyone else's side," he had shouted, pacing the living room with rage, carving shadows across his face. "You act like I'm some monster everyone needs protection from." She tried to soothe him, tried to calm the storm. But William didn't want comfort. He wanted obedience. And when she didn't give it, his anger ignited like gasoline. One shove. Then another. Then the slap, the one that had surprised even him. And finally, the punch. The one that changed everything. Her thoughts, as her world faded. Ariel was barely aware of the cold floor beneath her. Barely aware of the metallic taste in her mouth. Barely aware of William hovering above her, horrified, whispering, "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean get up. Please, get up. Ari." All she could think about was the baby. Please be okay. Please hold on. Please. But the pain sharpened, and something warm spread beneath her. That was when she knew. That was when terror replaced every other emotion. James Donovan wasn't supposed to be awake. Yet at 11:54 p.m., he sat up in bed in his modest home states away, heart pounding. He couldn't explain the feeling, only that it struck him out of nowhere like a cold hand gripping his spine. He tried calling Ariel. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, he would drive 12 hours straight. But by then, it would already be too late. William wasn't the type to panic. He was known for winning hostile negotiations with a calm smile. He didn't sweat. He didn't lose control. He didn't break. But tonight, he couldn't think straight. "What did you do? What did you do?" he whispered over and over. He grabbed his phone and paced. Call the hospital? No, too many questions. Call 911? No police reports get public. Call his lawyer? No, too suspicious. Instead, he called the private doctor who handled his discreet matters. The man who promised confidentiality. The man who owed William favors. But even the doctor's voice froze when he heard the situation. "William, she needs emergency care. You need to take her to a hospital. Now." William hesitated. He looked down at Ariel, who was trying to speak but could barely lift her head. A hospital meant records. Records meant investigations. Investigations meant headlines. Millionaire tech mogul under scrutiny. Domestic violence. Pregnant wife injured. Police inquiry underway. He imagined investors pulling out. Sponsors disappearing. Share prices falling. His empire collapsing. So he made a choice, the one that changed everything. He carried her to the car and sped toward a private clinic 3 towns away. One known for cooperating quietly with wealthy clients. But Ariel lost consciousness halfway there. The doctors did their best. Machines beeped. Nurses whispered. The lead physician's face hardened with every minute that passed. But by dawn, it was over. Her pregnancy had ended. Her baby was gone. William sat in a chair outside the operating room, head in his hands, spiraling between guilt and rage and fear. He blamed her for questioning him. Blamed the world for pressuring him. Blamed himself for losing control. But blame didn't matter, because someone else had already found out. James Donovan burst through the clinic doors like a storm breaking open. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful in the ways that mattered on paper. But he had the kind of presence that made people step aside. His shoulders were broad. His jaw was set with quiet fury. His eyes, usually warm, had turned sharp and cold. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for staff. He walked straight to the nurse's desk and demanded answers. "Where is my daughter? Where is Ariel Donovan?" They tried to calm him, tried to soothe him, tried to stall him. But when a father's child is hurt, nothing slows him down. He found her lying pale and weak in a dim recovery room, hooked to IV fluids, heart monitor beeping steadily. She looked up at him, eyes filled with a pain he had never seen in her. "Dad," she whispered, voice breaking. And he knew. He knew before she said the words. Knew before her tears slid down her cheeks. Knew before she clutched his hand and sobbed. He hit me. I lost the baby." That was the moment the Marine in him woke up. Not the soldier who fought wars. The father who protected what was his. He stood slowly, his fists curling at his sides. His voice was low, terrifyingly calm. "Where is he?" William was in a private waiting room, pacing, trying to craft the narrative in his head. An accident. She slipped. She fell. No one saw. She was emotional. She was stressed. Anything to salvage his reputation. He didn't hear the door open. Didn't see James until the man was already inches away. James grabbed him by the shirt and slammed him into the wall so hard the framed artwork shook. "Did you put your hands on my daughter?" His voice was low but deadly. William choked on his words. It was an accident. James's fist flew before he even realized he was swinging. One punch. Then another. A lifetime of fatherly instinct unleashed in a burst of unstoppable fury. It took 3 security guards to pull him off. William sat on the floor, gasping for air, blood trickling from his mouth, eyes wide with shock. For the first time in his adult life, he was afraid. And James leaned over him, voice steady with murderous calm. "You're not a man! You're a coward with money! And I'm going to make sure the world sees exactly who you are!" What William didn't know, what no one knew, was that James wasn't just a broke contractor with a temper. 20 years ago, before leaving the military and settling into a quiet life, he had been part of a special investigative unit specializing in high-profile domestic and criminal cases involving military elites and government officials. He knew how to build a case. He knew how to gather evidence quietly. He knew how to bring down powerful men who thought they were untouchable. And now, he was going to use every skill he had ever learned, not for his country, not for justice in a court, but for his daughter. The hallway outside the recovery room felt colder than any hospital should. Ariel lay motionless, her thin breaths barely lifting the blanket, while the soft beeping of the monitor served as the only fragile proof she was still here. But in the waiting hall, a storm was gathering, one built from a father's grief and the unchecked arrogance of a millionaire who had always believed consequences were for other people. James Donovan didn't sit, didn't blink, didn't speak for several long minutes after the security guards dragged him away from William. His knuckles bled, his breathing was uneven, but his mind was terrifyingly clear. He watched through the small pane of glass as Ariel lay silently on her bed. She looked like she was floating, as if any sudden movement might push her out of this world entirely. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, her lashes wet from tears she had long since run out of strength to cry. The nurses tried not to stare at James. They felt the atmosphere shift when he walked in, the intensity, the quiet anger, the way he carried himself. He wasn't threatening anyone, he wasn't shouting. But everyone instinctively stepped aside when he moved. He wasn't the kind of man people argued with. When the doctor finally approached him, he spoke with the cautious tone one uses around a parent who has buried too much pain in too few hours. "She's stable," the doctor said quietly. "But emotionally, this kind of trauma leaves deeper damage than anything physical." James didn't respond. "She's asking for you," the doctor added, placing a hand on his shoulder. That broke him. Not on the outside, his face remained a mask, but deep inside, a father's heart splintered into pieces. He walked into the room, and the moment he stepped inside, Ariel's eyes flickered open. For a second, she seemed confused. Then she recognized him, and everything inside her collapsed all over again. "Dad," she whispered. He reached for her hand gently, as if afraid she might break from touch alone. She swallowed hard, her voice so fragile it almost didn't reach him. "I'm sorry." He immediately shook his head, leaning down so she wouldn't have to speak loudly. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Not one thing. You hear me?" "I should have listened," she whispered, tears silently sliding into her hair. "You warned me. You told me. But I thought he loved me." James closed his eyes for a moment, not from frustration, but from pain so old and deep it felt like an echo of every father who had watched their child get hurt by someone unworthy. "Love doesn't hurt you," he said. "Love doesn't break you. And a real man never raises his hand to the woman carrying his child." The word child caused her whole body to tremble. A small sob escaped her. "It's gone. Dad, I lost the baby." James held her hand so tightly she could feel his heart break through his fingers. "You didn't lose anything," he whispered. "It was taken from you." She squeezed her eyes shut, as if trying to shut out the memory. I didn't think he would ever do something like that. I thought maybe he was stressed, or scared, or—" "He knew exactly what he was doing," James said sharply. Then, softening his tone, "You don't have to protect him anymore." Ariel didn't answer. She had no strength left for denial, no more excuses left to tell herself. Silence settled between them, a fragile, grieving silence heavy enough to fill the room. But while Ariel drifted into a medicated sleep, James sat beside her with a look so steady, so focused, it could have carved stone. His daughter had been hurt. His grandchild was gone. And the man responsible was still walking freely in this clinic, spinning a story, planning a cover-up. That would not stand. James rose from the chair, kissed the top of her head, and stepped out of the room, each movement deliberate, calculated, purposeful. He had work to do. William Aldridge was on his second phone call when James found him again, this time in the clinic's executive office, whispering in low, furious tones to someone on the other end. "No, listen to me," William hissed. "There can't be any public record. I don't care what it costs. Handle it." He hung up just as he realized he wasn't alone anymore. "Jesus Christ," he muttered when he saw James standing in the doorway, blocking the exit. William had seen anger before. Competitors, lawyers, rivals. But this was something else entirely. A father whose world had been destroyed. "Whatever you think happened," William started, lifting both hands as if reasoning would help him. "You're wrong. Ariel fell. She fainted. She's been very emotional lately, and with the pregnancy." James stepped closer slowly. "Say one more lie. Just one." William swallowed hard. The room was silent, except for the sound of William's shallow breathing. "You don't know the pressure I'm under," William said, his voice cracking under the desperation. "My company is in the middle of a merger. My investors—" "Your investors?" James repeated, eyebrows raising. "You killed your own child, and you're worried about investors?" "It wasn't like that," William snapped, losing what little composure he had. "She pushed me too far. She kept questioning me, accusing me." James froze. There it was. The truth in raw form. No lawyer. No PR team. Just a man revealing exactly who he was. "You blame her?" James asked softly. Too softly. William rubbed his hands over his face. "She knows how to antagonize me. She knows how to—" James's voice cut like a blade. "She knows how to what? Disagree with you? Ask for honesty? Expect respect?" William's face went blank. James moved forward until they were inches apart. "You think being a millionaire makes you untouchable. You think your money is armor. You think people like me don't matter." William's jaw clenched. "But I've taken down men bigger than you," James continued. "Men with more money. Men with more power. Men who thought their status made them gods." A flicker of fear crossed William's face. "You won't get away with this," James said. "Not this time. Not with my daughter." "You can't prove anything," William said quickly. "You think you can take on my lawyers, my publicity team, my connections? You're nothing compared to—" He didn't finish, because James stepped closer and whispered, "I don't need lawyers to destroy you." William's face drained of color. "I have something you don't," James said. "I have truth, and I have time, and most importantly, I have a daughter who deserves justice." He turned toward the door, leaving William shaken and breathless. But before he walked out completely, James added one last sentence, the one that would come to define everything that followed. "I'm not going to the police. Not yet. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to make sure every part of your life falls apart exactly the way you broke hers." Then he left. And for the first time in his life, William Aldridge realized what real fear tasted like. While William scrambled to secure his image, James disappeared from the clinic for several hours. He wasn't lost. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't unsure. He was gathering everything he needed. He called former unit contacts. He collected old surveillance gear from storage. He visited 2 former colleagues who owed him favors. He went places most men with clean hands didn't know existed. He was building a plan. A plan that didn't rely on courts, judges, or public sympathy. A plan that did not require trust in systems that men like William had always manipulated. a plan born from the skills he once promised never to use again. But this was different. This was his daughter, and for her, he would go to war. By the time he returned to the clinic, he had already decided how to dismantle William's life. Piece by piece, lie by lie, secret by secret. He entered Ariel's room quietly. She stirred as he sat beside her. "Dad, where did you go?" He brushed her hair gently. "I went to protect you." Her eyes filled with fear. "Please don't do anything dangerous. I can't lose you too." He held her hand tightly. "You're not going to lose me," he said, "but he's going to lose everything." Ariel's voice trembled. "I don't want revenge. I just want to be safe." "That," James whispered, "is exactly what I'm making sure of." He didn't tell her the full truth. Not yet. But in his mind, the plan was already alive. Tomorrow, the world would begin to see the real William Aldridge. And the billionaire who believed money could bury anything was about to learn what happens when you hurt the wrong person's child. Ariel woke the next morning with a dull ache in her body and a heavier ache in her chest. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in thin, unforgiving stripes, illuminating the quiet emptiness of the recovery room. She blinked slowly, letting her eyes adjust, letting her mind gather itself, piece by fragile piece. The first thing she noticed was the absence of her wedding ring. She didn't remember removing it. She didn't remember much at all. Her fingers brushed the bare skin, and a strange mixture of relief and grief pulsed through her. The ring had once meant safety, love, belonging. Now it felt like a reminder of a life she no longer recognized. The second thing she noticed was her father asleep in the chair beside her, his arms folded, his posture stiff, as if he hadn't allowed himself a moment of real rest. He looked older today, not in years, but in burden. She watched him for a long moment, her heart tightening. He had always been her protector, but this time, the damage had been too great, even for him to prevent. A tear slid down her cheek before she realized she was crying. James stirred, his eyes opening instantly, trained by years of instinct to wake at the slightest shift in the room. He leaned forward. "You're awake," he said softly. She nodded, wiping her face with trembling fingers. "Are you in pain?" he asked. She didn't know how to answer. Her body hurt, yes, but her heart felt split in two. "You don't have to pretend for me," he added gently. Her voice cracked. "Dad, I lost everything." "You didn't lose everything," he said. "You lost what he took from you. There's a difference." She bit her lip hard, trying to hold herself together, but the pressure inside her chest finally broke. A deep, aching sob escaped her, and James reached over, pulling her carefully into his arms. She cried quietly, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper than sadness, the kind that grows in places where love once lived. He held her until the sobs softened, until her breathing steadied. Then, with a steady voice, she whispered the question she had been terrified to ask. "Where is he?" James's jaw tightened. "Somewhere in this building, hiding behind lies." Her face drained of color. "Dad, don't do anything stupid." "You were beaten unconscious," he said. "There's nothing stupid about protecting you." She met his eyes. "Promise me you won't get arrested." He lowered his gaze, unable to give her the promise she wanted. She reached for his hand. "I mean it. I can't lose you, too." Something in him softened. He nodded slowly. "I'm not going to jail," he said, "but I am going to make sure he never touches you again." She swallowed, her throat tight. "I don't know how to leave him. I don't know where to go. He controls everything. Money, lawyers, all the accounts." "You don't need money," James said. "You have me." Ariel squeezed his hand. "But we can't fight him legally. He has too much power." "We're not in a courtroom," James said. "We're in the real world. And there, he has far less power than he thinks." She didn't know what he meant. He didn't explain. But for the first time since the night everything shattered, she felt the smallest flicker of safety, the tiniest seed of hope. Something her father had always been able to give her, even in the darkest moments. William, on the other hand, was unraveling. He stood at the clinic's private reception counter, hair disheveled, voice sharp with panic as he whispered urgently to the administrative director. "I need the medical report sealed," he demanded. "All records, all documentation. No notes about injuries or other complications." The director, a man accustomed to wealthy clients, still shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Aldridge, certain files must be logged." "No, they don't," William snapped. "You'll be compensated." "Sir, if this involves domestic?" William slammed a hand on the desk. "Are you listening? I said, seal it." His phone vibrated. He didn't even glance at the name his lawyer was calling for the 5th time. He picked up. "Tell me you handled it," he hissed. The lawyer's voice was low. "Handled what? I still have no idea what's happening because you refuse to explain anything." "We have a situation," William said. "A. Misunderstanding with Ari. She got hurt. It's being blown out of proportion." There was a cold pause on the other end. "William, did you hit her?" "No." He lied automatically. "Of course not. She fell." "But with the pregnancy." Another pause. "You understand this could end your career if anyone finds out." "I know that," William snapped, pacing, "which is why I'm calling you." "Then you need to leave the clinic quietly," the lawyer said. "We'll craft a statement. We'll handle your wife's narrative. We'll—" William froze. "Wait, she's awake?" "Yes," the lawyer said slowly. "The clinic confirmed she regained consciousness earlier." "Why?" Because William suddenly realized something. She could talk. She could tell the truth. She could ruin him with one sentence. Panic crashed through him. "Find out what she knows," he said. "Find out if she's talking to anyone." But before he could say more, a voice spoke from behind him. "Don't bother." William turned. James Donovan stood in the hallway, arms folded, eyes cold as steel. "You won't get near her again," James said. William inhaled sharply, bracing himself. "She's my wife." "Not anymore." "You can't make that decision," William said, trying to keep his composure. "She needs me. She's emotional. She's fragile. And when she's feeling better—" James's laugh was low, humorless. "You think she'll go back to you?" "She will," William said confidently. "She always does. She forgives easily." James took one step closer, slow, deliberate, dangerous. "That's because she loved you," he said. "Not because you deserved it. And let me make something very clear. She will never forgive you for this." William opened his mouth, closed it, then forced himself to stand straighter. "You don't know her like I do." "No," James said. "I know her better. She might have loved you, but she loved her baby more." Something flickered in William's expression, guilt, anger, denial, all tangled into one frantic emotion. James watched it closely and said the words that broke the last thread of William's confidence. "She knows what you did." William's throat tightened. "She's confused. She's traumatized. She'll remember it differently when she calms down." James shook his head. "You don't get to rewrite reality this time." "I'm not going down for something I didn't do," William said. "You hit her," James said. "You hit a pregnant woman, your pregnant wife, and you killed your own child." William staggered back slightly, as if the words themselves struck him. "It was an accident," he whispered. James leaned in, voice steady and deadly calm. "No, an accident is a mistake. What you did was a choice." William's breath trembled. "And now," James added, "I'm going to expose every choice you've ever made." For the first time, William didn't respond. He couldn't. He simply watched James walk away. And something inside him cracked. Ariel's discharge came later that afternoon. She was weak, unsteady, but determined. James had already signed the release papers, already packed her belongings, already arranged transport. She hesitated as they reached the exit. "Dad, he's going to follow us." "Good," James said. "Follow me right into the trap." She blinked. "What trap?" He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Everything he's done to you, I'm going to make sure the world sees it." Ariel swallowed hard. "I don't want the world to see me like this." "They won't," James said. "They'll see him." She drew a shaky breath. "He'll fight back." "Yes," James said, "which means he'll make mistakes." She looked up at him, fear flickering behind her eyes. "Dad, what exactly are you planning?" James exhaled slowly, the weight of his decision sitting heavy in his voice. "I'm going to take away the one thing he values more than anything," he said. "What?" she whispered. His answer chilled her. "His reputation." He walked her toward the exit, each step final, each step the beginning of a war. And as they stepped outside into the cold afternoon air, James added quietly, "He took your child. Now, I'm going to take his entire world." Behind the clinic door, William Aldridge watched them leave powerless for the first time in his life. And the man he feared most was not the lawyer on speed dial, not the detectives he thought he could manipulate, not the investors whose money he worshipped. It was the father he had underestimated. And the knowledge that James Donovan was just getting started. The drive back to James's home felt endless for Ariel. Every bump in the road made her flinch. Every sharp turn made her grip the seat. And every shadow reminded her of the night her world shattered. She stared out the window, eyes unfocused, watching the landscape blur past like a memory she wasn't part of anymore. James kept checking the rearview mirror. Not to watch traffic, to make sure no one was following them. His mind worked faster than his hands on the wheel, analyzing, planning, predicting countermoves. He had seen the look in William's eyes, desperation, mixed with entitlement. That combination was always dangerous. But he wasn't intimidated. He was calculating. When they finally reached his quiet wooded property, Ariel exhaled shakily. The house looked smaller than she remembered, a modest, sturdy, single-story home with a wraparound porch and a wind chime that sang softly whenever the breeze passed. It was comforting, familiar, safe. But even safety felt foreign now. James opened her door and helped her out. She leaned into him slightly, her legs unsteady, her world still spinning from everything she had endured. Inside, the house smelled like cedar and warm coffee. He had left the heater on, blankets folded neatly, soup simmering on the stove. He wasn't a man who said, "I love you" often, but he showed it in actions, and right now his actions wrapped her like armor. She eased onto the couch, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she lifted the warm mug he gave her. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't feel like myself." "That's normal," he said quietly. "No," she said, her voice breaking. I feel empty." James sat beside her, his gaze gentle but fierce. "You're not empty. You're hurt, and healing doesn't happen overnight." Her eyes brimmed with tears again. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "I loved him so much. How did I miss what he really was?" "You didn't miss it," James said. "He hid it." "But I saw the signs," she said. "The way he talked to waiters, the way he snapped at people when he didn't get his way, the way he controlled everything. I just thought love could fix it." "Love doesn't fix broken people," James said. "It just gives them another person to break." Ariel pressed her lips together, her tears spilling freely. "I wish I could hate him." "You will," James said. "One day." She shook her head, voice trembling. "But I can't yet." He rested a hand gently on her back. "You don't need to, not today." But grief was only part of her burden. As she sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, she asked the question she had been holding in since the clinic. "What if he comes here?" "He won't," James said without hesitation. How do you know? James paused before answering, not because he wasn't sure, but because explaining his certainty meant revealing more than she knew. Because I'm watching him, he said simply. She frowned. You're watching him? How? James stood and walked to the closet in the hallway. She heard metal clicks, the soft shift of equipment, the unmistakable weight of a man preparing for something bigger than a legal battle. Her father hadn't just gone home to pack bags. He had collected tools. Tools he thought he'd never use again. Ariel felt a shiver climb her spine. Dad, what are you planning? He returned with a small black case. He set it on the coffee table and opened it slowly. Inside were things she couldn't immediately identify. Compact devices, small cameras, encrypted recorders, tools she'd seen only in movies. She stared, breath-catching. What is all that? James sat again, his voice steady. I'm not going to hurt him, but I am going to expose him. Publicly. Permanently. Ariel's heart raced. Dad, this looks like evidence-gathering equipment, he finished. From my old unit. She blinked. Your old unit? He studied her quietly. I told you I handled investigative work in the military. What I didn't tell you is that sometimes those investigations involved powerful men. Men who thought their wealth or influence erased consequences. She swallowed. Like William. He nodded. Exactly like William. Her pulse quickened. What are you going to do? I'm going to get proof, he said. Proof of the abuse. Proof of his lies. Proof of everything he's buried over the years. But he's not going to admit anything, she whispered. No, James said. But he's arrogant. Men like him always slip. They think they're smarter than everyone. They think they can talk their way out of anything. Ariel's eyes widened as she realized his plan. You're going to set him up. I'm going to let him set himself up, James corrected. All I have to do is give him the chance. She pressed the blanket closer around her shoulders. I don't know if I can do this. You don't have to, he said. I'll do it. You just focus on healing. But she shook her head. Dad, I don't want to hide. James paused. I want him to know I'm not afraid anymore, she said. I want him to see that he can't control me, that he can't manipulate me, that I'm not his property. A fierce pride glowed in James's eyes. Then we'll do this together, he said. Your way. Ariel leaned back, feeling the smallest bit of strength return to her body. Not much, but enough. Enough to survive today. Enough to face tomorrow. Even enough to want justice. But while father and daughter planned, miles away, William was unraveling. His lawyer had called emergency meetings. PR specialists were scrambling. His assistant was panicking. The merger deal he was counting on, worth over $200 million, was suddenly in jeopardy. Investors smelled weakness. Whispers sparked through corporate halls. Rumors swirled faster than he could contain them. Everything was slipping. Then came the blow he didn't expect. His lawyer called, voice tight. William, you need to see this. What now? He muttered, exhausted. There's footage. What footage? A video, the lawyer said. It's spreading in private group chats. It shows you shouting at Ariel at a charity gala last December. People are sharing it as evidence of a pattern of behavior. William's stomach twisted. Who filmed it? Doesn't matter, the lawyer said. It's small now, but if it leaks to the public... Handle it! William shouted. I'm trying, the lawyer said sharply. But the bigger issue is this. Someone is digging. Someone is looking for more. William froze. Looking for what? He whispered. More footage, more witnesses, more records. They're gathering everything they can find. A chill ran down his spine. He knew exactly who it was. The father. The man who looked at him with the kind of cold certainty William couldn't escape. He's coming after me, William said. Yes, the lawyer said. And for the first time, you can't buy him off. William sank into a chair, hands shaking, mind spiraling. He had never fought someone who didn't want money, someone who couldn't be intimidated, someone who had nothing to lose. Fear built in his chest until his breath came short and fast. "Find out where she is," William said. "Find out what he's doing." "William," his lawyer said firmly, "this is not the time to make reckless decisions. You need to lay low." "I need to control the narrative," William snapped. "She's not going to destroy me," the lawyer sighed. "If she speaks publicly, you're done." "She won't," William said. "I'll make sure of it." But his voice wasn't confident. It was desperate. Back in James's home, night settled outside, thick and quiet. Ariel lay curled on the couch, drifting in and out of sleep, her body exhausted. James sat in the kitchen, the black case open in front of him, his laptop on the table, encrypted messages flashing on the screen as he communicated with old contacts. He was building a timeline, collecting digital evidence, pulling old security camera feeds, tracing reports of William's known behavior. Piece by piece, the story was forming. A story far bigger than Ariel ever knew. Not just domestic violence. Not just manipulation. Not just temper. But silence agreements. Threatened employees. Buried allegations. Non-disclosure contracts paid through offshore accounts. A web of secrets woven over years. William wasn't just a bad husband. He was a dangerous man who had hurt many before her. And now, finally, someone was coming for him. James leaned back in his chair, his face carved with determination. Tomorrow, the trap would begin. Not through violence. Not through intimidation. But through truth. The kind of truth that destroys empires. He closed the laptop and glanced toward the living room, where Ariel slept under the dim glow of the lamp. He whispered into the quiet room, "He won't touch you again. By the time I'm done, he won't touch anyone." Morning came slowly for Ariel, as if the sun itself was trying to move gently for her sake. She woke to the soft rustle of birds outside, and the faint smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then the memories flooded back the clinic, her father's fierce embrace, the plan they'd agreed on. Her chest tightened. Today was the day everything would change. She sat up, the blanket pooling around her lap, and looked toward the kitchen. James stood with his back turned, pouring coffee with the calmness of a man preparing for a storm he fully intended to win. He sensed her watching and turned. His expression softened. "Morning." She nodded. "Morning. Soup's on the stove if you're hungry." Her stomach twisted. Hunger felt foreign. Fear and determination had replaced appetite entirely. James walked over, set a cup of coffee on the table in front of her, and lowered himself into the chair across from the couch. He studied her face carefully, as if checking for cracks in the armor she was trying so hard to rebuild. "You sure you want to do this today?" he asked. Ariel took a slow breath. "I need to." "You don't need to push yourself." "I'm not pushing myself," she whispered. "I'm reclaiming myself." He nodded, proud, worried, ready. But inside, Ariel's thoughts trembled. She wasn't fearless. She was terrified. Her hands shook when she brought the mug to her lips. Her breath stuttered when she thought of William's face, his voice, the way he'd shout just loud enough to remind her who controlled the room. But she wasn't the same woman anymore. She wasn't the woman who apologized for the way he hurt her. She wasn't the woman who swallowed tears so he wouldn't get angrier. No, she was someone new. Someone rising from the debris of a broken marriage and a broken illusion. "So," James said gently, "here's our plan." Ariel straightened. "Today, we open the door for him to incriminate himself." "How?" she asked, her voice small. "I need you to send him a message," James said. "One that gives him just enough hope, enough ego to talk, to admit to things, to reveal his mindset." Ariel hesitated. The thought of contacting William again made her skin crawl. But she swallowed and nodded. "What do I say?" James slid his phone toward her. Say you want closure. Say you want to talk face to face. Keep it vague. Men like him fill in the blanks with exactly what they want to believe. Ariel stared at the screen. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. She typed slowly, carefully. I'm ready to talk. I don't want things to end this way. Meet me at the little cabin tonight. Just us. I need answers. Her finger hovered over the send button. Her pulse throbbed. Her breath stuck. James placed a steady hand over hers, grounding her. You're not alone, he said. Ariel nodded once, then pressed send. The message flew into the digital ether, carrying with it the weight of the entire plan. She exhaled, shakily. It was done. Now, all they could do was wait. The reply came faster than she expected. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm coming to you right now. She felt her stomach drop. James read over her shoulder and shook his head slightly, almost amused. He's panicking, he murmured. Good. Good. Another message appeared. Please, Ariel, just tell me where you are. I can't lose you. I'm sorry. I miss you. Let's work this out. You belong with me. The last sentence tightened something inside her, something raw and furious. You belong with me. It wasn't love. It was ownership. It was entitlement. It was everything she was escaping. Ariel's breath shook. He hasn't changed at all. James nodded. No, and he won't. But that's what's going to expose him. He took his phone, opened an app she didn't recognize, and set it on the table. A faint red light blinked at the corner of the screen. Voice capture, he said. Secure. Encrypted. Admissible. Ariel's eyes widened. You're going to be in the cabin, he explained, but I'll be near, out of sight. He'll think it's just you two. He'll drop his guard. Ariel swallowed. And when he does? We document everything, he said. Every word he says. Every threat. Every lie. Every admission. And after that? After that, James said calmly, we take it public. Ariel leaned back, trembling. Not with fear this time. With anticipation. With justice. With something dangerously close to hope. Hours passed as they prepared. James tested the equipment repeatedly, checked the signal strength, placed microphones in the cabin's corners, set up a small camera peeking out from a bookshelf. Everything was discreet. Impossible to notice, unless someone was looking for it. Ariel paced outside the cabin, breathing in the sharp scent of pine needles and damp soil. Even the forest felt tense, like it understood tonight wasn't ordinary. She rehearsed the conversation in her mind. She wouldn't yell. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't let him twist her words. She would let him talk. Because William was always most dangerous when he believed he was winning. Dusk settled. The sky turned gold, then orange, then deep violet. The forest darkened around them. The cabin lights glowed softly from inside, casting a warm square of light onto the porch. He'll be here soon, James said, glancing at his watch. If you want to back out. I don't. He nodded, understanding. Stay strong. I will. And if he gets too close, I'll call you. And if he tries to touch you, I won't let him. James studied her carefully, then pulled her into a brief, steady embrace. You're braver than you think, he murmured. She closed her eyes for a moment, grounding herself in his strength. Then headlights appeared through the trees. Bright. Fast. Hungry. Ariel froze. The sound of gravel crunching under tires sent a jolt through her. The car door opened. Heavy footsteps approached. William stepped into the light. He looked disheveled, stressed, eyes wild with desperation. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his tie loose, his hair pushed back like he'd run his hands through it 100 times. Ariel, he breathed, voice breaking. Thank God. She didn't move. She didn't smile. She didn't melt like she used to. She stood perfectly still. He took a step forward. Baby, listen, I'm so sorry. I've been losing my mind. I can't sleep. I can't think. I need you back. Ariel kept her voice steady. Why? He blinked. Confused. Off balance. What do you mean, why? He said. Because I love you. Do you? She asked softly. Or do you just hate losing something you think you own? William's jaw tightened. What? Of course I don't, Ariel. Come on. This is us. I said I'm sorry. Isn't that enough? She tilted her head, her voice quiet but sharp. Is that what you told the others? He froze. What others? The people you paid off. The ones who signed NDAs. The ones who were afraid of you. His expression cracked just for a second, revealing something dark and real underneath. Ariel, he said slowly, I don't know what you think you know, but you're making a mistake. There it was. The shift. The beginning of the unraveling. James watched from the shadows, recording everything. Ariel didn't blink. Then explained the footage, explained the records, explained the threats. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Who told you those lies? Your father? My father didn't have to tell me, she whispered. You already did. William's expression twisted. Anger swelled under his skin. Ariel, he hissed, you need to be careful about what you say. Why? She said. Are you going to hit me again? His mask shattered. He grabbed her wrist hard. Not enough to hurt her. Just enough to show control. And that was all James needed. He surged from the shadows. William didn't even have time to turn before James was on him, wrenching his hand away, shoving him back against the cabin wall. Touch her again, James growled, and I'll bury your entire empire. William gasped, stunned. You set me up. No, James said. You exposed yourself. Ariel stepped forward, voice steady for the first time in years. It's over, William. He stared at her, breathing hard, realization dawning. You're going to ruin me. No, she said softly. You ruined yourself. You ruined yourself. James held up his phone, the red light still blinking. We got everything, he said. William's face went pale. Ariel turned away from him. For the first time, she felt free. The cabin fell silent after William's final outburst, the night air thick with the kind of tension that only comes after long-buried truth finally tears itself free. Ariel stood still, her breath trembling, her pulse racing, but her face was calm. She had spent years breaking quietly. Tonight, she had broken loud enough for the world to hear. James kept one hand pressed to William's chest, holding him in place, not hurting him, just keeping him exactly where he could no longer do damage. William stared between the two of them, his face pale, lips shaking, the weight of his downfall sinking in slowly, painfully. You don't know what you're doing, he whispered. Ariel stepped closer, her voice steady, almost gentle. I know exactly what I'm doing. He swallowed hard. You're destroying my life. You destroyed our child's, she whispered, and you destroyed the woman I used to be. James stepped back finally, releasing him. William stumbled, catching himself on the cabin wall. His breath rasped in harsh, uneven pulls as he clutched his head, disbelief twisting through him like a knife. This is all lies, he hissed. No one will believe you. James held up the phone again, his thumb hovering over the screen. The cameras will. Only then did William notice the tiny blinking light in the window frame behind Ariel. He blinked, then blinked again. Horror slowly spread across his face as he realized just how much of his confession had been captured. His threats, his excuses, his attempt to justify the unjustifiable. His chokehold on power shattered in seconds. You set me up, he breathed again, this time not angry, but broken. No, Ariel said softly. We freed me. And that was the truth. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was release. For her, for the baby she lost, for the years she spent shrinking herself into the quiet corners of William's world. James pocketed the phone. "We're done here." He gently took Ariel's arm, guiding her toward the path that led back to the truck. She walked steadily, not looking back. But William did. He stared after her, breath shaking, tears burning the corners of his eyes. Not tears of love, not regret. Fear. For the first time in his life, William Aldridge feared the consequences of his own hands. Ariel's voice drifted back as she reached the path. "You'll face the world the way you forced me to face you alone." And then she disappeared into the trees with her father. The forest swallowed the last echoes of her words, and William's empire began its silent collapse. 2 months later, the world had changed. Not just for him, but for her. William's video went viral within hours. His investors pulled out. His board forced him to resign. His public apology tour only made things worse. It became clear to everyone that his remorse wasn't real, it was convenience, disguised as sorrow. Meanwhile, Ariel found her own voice. People reached out. Women, survivors, families. She wasn't alone anymore. She never had been. She had simply been isolated by a man who thrived on silence. But now she lived loudly. She attended therapy. She spoke with community groups. She rebuilt her sense of self from the inside out, quietly, gently, without demanding perfection from herself. One morning, as she sat on her porch, wrapped in a warm sweater, James sat beside her with 2 cups of tea. He didn't say much. He never had been the type to fill silence. But his presence was strong, steady, grounding. "You look stronger," he said at last. Ariel smiled faintly. "I feel it." "Proud of you, kid." She leaned her head briefly against his shoulder. "Thank you for saving me." James shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just held the line until you were ready." A soft breeze moved through the trees. Birds chirped somewhere in the distance. The world felt lighter, calmer, almost new. Ariel breathed deeply, letting the morning air fill her chest, letting peace settle where pain once lived. Her story hadn't been about wealth, or violence, or revenge. It had been about reclaiming her voice, her strength, her future, and she had done it. Slowly, quietly, bravely. The world would remember William for the empire he destroyed, but it would remember Ariel for the life she rebuilt.